What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Atlantic Files. We are on episode 298, and this week we are talking about Morant returning, Steve Kerr possibly on the hot seat. We're talking about Atlantic Division, doing a little update on what's going on there, and we're talking about Giannis getting into more fights about stupid things. So without further ado, let's get into the intro and get into the new episode.
Welcome to the Atlantic Files, where humor and vibes collide. Nets the Sixers, the king of the court, jokes that hit you one more. Atlantic Division, we own the scene. Comedy, food talk, every routine. Mike Bash, Clausen, Fischbein on the mic, making you laugh every episode right. Game is strong, court to kitchen, we're never wrong. You know what time it is, it's time for the Atlantic Files.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. As always, joined by your hosts, myself, Alex Fischbein, and I got Mike Bash. What's going on, Mike?
I had not heard that song, so that was such a, I haven't been on in so long that caught me so off guard. I don't know. That was funny. That was good, though. And it was funny because I was sitting there in the background going like this. And then the video you have me is doing this. And I was like,
it all lined up perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, shout out those guys. I have to go back and look at their name to give them a proper shout out. But two guys, I think they're from Sweden, actually, that do like jingles and intros and things like that. They do some great work. So once they sent that to me after I like told them the podcast and like what it's about and everything, I was like, damn, they did this super fast and it actually is pretty spot on.
Yeah. That was pretty good. Credit to the Swedes.
Exactly. So I guess for the people, it's been a while since you've been on. So how's your I know how it's doing, but let the people know how like your dynasty team's doing, how even your fantasy football. We've talked a lot of fantasy football in here with Dennis. So,
well, we know that I don't miss. We know that I'm Mr. 100 over here. Fantasy football team, I got two dynasty teams. Both are in first place, going into the semifinal. Okay. Fantasy basketball, I'm in second place, but with the best record in the league, tied with Nas. I beat Dennis, our host here that's not here. You know, it's funny. I beat him and then he doesn't show up when I show up. I think he's avoiding me. So things are good in the fantasy world. In the real life world, I have an update for everyone. This is the puppy we got. He's out in the other room causing havoc, probably. But no, all things are good. All things are good.
What's his name again?
Cooper. Oh, and we haven't. This is not a college show, but Rutgers officially landed the number 2 and 3 recruits in the country, in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. So everything's coming up just all right now. Everything's coming up good.
Go. And you're doing another. Were you just a guest on that other podcast, or are you doing the other?
No,
podcast?
I'm doing another one. It's college basketball. We mainly talk about Rutgers. It's called the Pike's Place Hoop Market instead of the coffee thing in Seattle.
Right.
We filmed 2 episodes or recorded 2 episodes. Still need to do a third one, but that's me and this guy Alec Krauthamel from Rutgers, student at Rutgers. Everyone knows I love Rutgers basketball, so it's something I'm pretty passionate about. It's a good time to be a Rutgers fan right now, so I can't complain.
That's very true. I mean, I still have yet to like really dip my toe in college basketball, other than obviously the March Madness and everything. But I have seen through what you've posted and just through just like random people that I follow on Twitter that it looks like Rutgers should be a pretty big force of a team the next couple years.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, we landed, like I said, 2 of the top 3 recruits in the country. Have a couple kids that if they decide to come back, Rutgers could roll into next year with a top 15 team in the country. So things are good right now. Things are definitely good for Rutgers basketball.
Okay. Other than Ron Harper, is there any other Rutgers alum in the NBA?
Caleb McConnell is on the Oklahoma City Blue, I think it's called, or whatever, the OKC G League team.
Okay.
Eugene Amarui, he went to Rutgers for a few years, transferred to Oregon. He's on the Wizards. And then I think that's it right now.
Okay.
Just trying to think.
I was going to say, I'm used to seeing a lot more Rutgers guys in the NFL rather than the NBA.
Yeah, no, we're turning into a basketball school. Soon we'll be a basketball factory.
Okay. I mean, always shout out to the Gus bust. My guy Gus Edwards. But anyway, with that being said, let's get into some basketball here. I want to get into we're going to get to Ja Morant because he returned as well, but the first thing I want to talk about has been something that's been in the news a lot, not just because he's the coach, but because of the Draymond Green stuff and all sorts of that. So Steve Kerr, a lot of folks have talked about him being on the hot seat because of questionable rotations. Sometimes people don't understand why, like, Jonathan Kuminga's not getting some minutes. People don't understand why, like, Moses Moody wasn't getting minutes at one point, and then he was kind of taking people out when they were having a great game at the end of the game just to put Clay in, and Clay's been struggling. So, and at this point, I mean, the whole Draymond saga, Kerr does not have a handle over that at all. So that's another thing that people are questioning big time. And I mean, right now they have gone from like one of the top teams, at least they used to be one of the top teams. And according to BovadaSportsbook.com, the Golden State Warriors are now with the 9th best odds to win the Western Conference. They're at plus 1,800 behind teams like the Nuggets, Suns, Clippers, Lakers, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Kings, and even the Thunder. So my question to you is, do you think that that Steve Kerr should be on the hot seat, and do you think that they're going to be able to turn this around?
I'm going to say no to both. Turning around in terms of making the playoffs, they'll probably make the playoffs. You have Steph Curry, one of the greatest players of all time, on their roster. I'm sure he'll get them to the playoffs. But I don't think that means Steve Kerr deserves to be on the hot seat. I always say you're not as good as you are at your best, and you're not as bad as you are at your worst. Steve Kerr is a great coach, and he's kind of as good of a hand as he got dealt, taking a team that was, right on the cusp of being pretty good and turning them into a dynasty. The team's now, that same core is now 35 years old. And they had a few chances with the Wiseman pick and the Kuminga pick and the Moody pick, and they went pretty much over 3 on those picks. So is that James Wiseman's? I'm sorry. Is that Steve Kerr's fault, or is that Bob Myers or whatever, Bob Jacob, I forget who the GM is there.
I think it was Myers. He stepped down.
So now is that really Steve Kerr's fault that they missed on 3 lottery picks? But now you got Clay, who's coming back from 2 major catastrophic injuries. You got Draymond Green, who can't keep his cool and is clearly a shell of the player he was 6-7 years ago. Curry's still Curry, but he's not Curry. He's still a great player, but he's not unanimous MVP Stephen Curry. And none of the guys around them have stepped up. So that's not Steve Kerr's fault. I mean, maybe he's not the greatest coach that ever walked the face of the earth like he looked like 5 years ago, but he's still a very good coach, above average coach. If you put him on the Nets when they had KD and Kyrie, he probably brings the Nets to a championship. So I don't think he should be on the hot seat. And if he is, that's a shame. Maybe there ends up being a mutual decision to part ways where Curry ends up, they break it up, and they trade Curry and they move, and Kerr goes to another team or something. But if you're the Warriors looking for a long-term solution, Steve Kerr's your guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Steve Kerr should be on the hot seat. And if he is, I think that the Warriors would be dumb to go down that road, especially because there are plenty of other teams right now that be looking for a coach like Steve Kerr. I mean, we saw the Pistons gamble and get Monty Williams after some of the good years he had in Phoenix, but now we're looking at the Pistons as if they can't do anything. I mean, they only have 2 wins so far this entire season. Excuse me, despite the fact that they do have some decent talent on the team, especially young talent. And like Steve Kerr, if you're putting Steve Kerr on any one of these, like teams that are on the cusp of competing for a championship, then yeah, he's probably going to push them over the edge. Like you said, if the Nets had him when KD, Kyrie, and Harden were there, that is exponentially better than what they had. And then you put him on, like, say he was available in the offseason and the Sixers decided to go with Steve Kerr instead of Nick Nurse. Probably would be just as good, if not better, than where they're at right now. I mean, you even have, like, if you put him on the Kings or the Mavericks or any of those teams, I think he creates them or puts them into the championship conversation. So I don't think Steve Kerr should exactly be on the hot seat. Can it be like a little warm of a seat? Sure. I think he does need to show that he's willing to experiment right now because of the fact that this core is getting older. They're like you said, they're pretty much all around 35 now. Steph, his game isn't predicated on athleticism, which is, I mean, good for the longevity of his game, but you can only ask so much of a pretty undersized guard that relies on running constantly around screens and things like that. I feel like once you get a little older, you're not going to be running around screens for 35 minutes a game constantly.
Yeah, and they made the decision to trade Jordan Poole, which, listen, Jordan Poole was falling flat on his face, literally and figuratively, in Washington. But Jordan Poole, as we saw in Golden State, with structure and coaching and accountability, is actually an above-average NBA player who's 23 years old, 22 years old. So they made that decision for Chris Paul, who, all credit to Chris Paul, great all-time player. What is he, 36? What are we doing here? So it is what it is. Maybe they should have went out and traded for Porzingis. They traded for the wrong guy on the Wizards. But it's not Steve Kerr's fault. It's no way would I be blaming Steve Kerr here.
Honestly, they could even use Kyle Kuzma right now. Yeah. Kuzma's been having a pretty good season, and having him over somebody like Draymond, and I mean, Andrew Wiggins has been pretty terrible so far this year. And he was one of the guys that, like, because he was playing so well, it made the team even better when they won their championship. So it is, I mean, the one thing is, though, Steve Kerr is playing the Podziemski, or however you say his name, playing him a little more lately, which has turned out to be pretty good. I mean, up until he got hurt in the last game, but he's been able to contribute some big time minutes for them as a rookie. And Moses Moody has gotten in a little bit more. At least Steve Kerr also took ownership of some of the bad rotations in some of those games that happened not too long ago. He did take ownership and say, like, yeah, I should not have taken a couple of those guys out at the end of the game because they were putting up some big numbers and they would have helped us win. So if you have a coach that just, like, doesn't see, the writing on the wall of what he's doing and why it's contributing to losses, then I think you're on a hotter seat than Steve Kerr would be. Like, if you have a guy like the Chargers coach Staley before he got fired, if you just, keep saying, like, we're going to keep doing what we're doing and it's turning into losses every time, like, yeah, you're going to be on a pretty hot seat. But that's not what Steve Kerr's been doing. He's been, at least after the first stretch of games of not making many adjustments. He's starting to make a little bit more. So I think that he'll be okay at least for another season or two. But I thought this was funny. On Bovada right now, they have odds for what team Draymond Green will end up on after the 2024 trade deadline if it is not the Golden State Warriors. And the highest odds it actually has is the Mavericks, which I think would be interesting to have Draymond with Kyrie and Luka. Especially because, like, I feel as though he would do.
That's a bomb waiting to be detonated.
Oh, Draymond and Kyrie on the same team?
And Luka?
Yeah. That I can't even imagine how that would go. But the next three that are tied with the second highest or third highest odds, the Pacers, Cavs, and Kings. The Lakers are in there at number 2. The Lakers make sense because, his whole obsession with LeBron and that whole friendship. And then you have the Pistons at plus 800, the Sixers at plus 800, and the Spurs at plus 800. Some of those teams I don't see at all. Like, I don't see him going to the Pistons.
Or the Spurs.
I don't see him going to the Spurs. I honestly don't even see him going to the Sixers unless they're trading Draymond for, like, a bag of chips. And so, to me, it comes down. I feel like I could see him on the Pacers or the Lakers. I think those two teams probably make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. The Pacers don't make. I don't know. I think originally I thought the Lakers because of LeBron.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like. I'm surprised the Lakers aren't the highest odds rather than the Mavericks. The Mavericks is still weird to me. I just think the Pacers could use him because, like, they have Obi Toppin starting at the power forward right now. Toppin is okay offensively, but the biggest thing the Pacers need is defense. Their defense is god awful. I mean, 3 of the 5 players that have scored 50 points this season have come against the Pacers. The Pacers just gave up like 150 or 160 points to the Clippers last night. James Harden put up like almost 40 on them last night. Their defense is just horrendous. I mean, Giannis put up 60 on them. So, yeah, they need some sort of help there. But anyway, that being said, like, have you seen this whole thing about Giannis with the game ball?
Yeah, that was just ridiculous. I mean, I understand both sides of it. Oscar Tshiebwe getting his first bucket or first point, you know, as a rookie, you can only do that once. So part of me thinks he deserves the ball. Actually, I really don't see both parts of it. I think Oscar Tshiebwe deserved the ball. I don't think Giannis deserved the ball. I mean, yeah, you set a franchise record. But, dude, you're one of the top 3 players in the league. You're probably going to score 65 in 4 weeks. Like, let Oscar Tshiebwe have his ball. And then act like a deranged lunatic like he did. I mean, that was just too much for me. So, yeah, I don't understand Giannis freaking out. I don't understand if it was like, Marchand Beauchamp or whatever his name is going off for 50. Like, the guy might never do that again. And I'm not picking on a guy on your fantasy team. I'm just picking on a random player on the Bucks. Like, Giannis, chill out. You just dunked the ball. You had 32 dunks probably that game.
I know. It was essentially dunks and free throws for him. I mean, he shot, like, if I remember correctly, he shot somewhere around like 30 free throws in that game.
Which probably took about an hour and a half to complete. Yeah,
exactly. Half of the game was just Giannis free throws, time-wise. But it's just the fact that he, like, rushed the locker room and rushed the tunnel looking for this game ball was ridiculous. And also at the same time, like, Damian Lillard moved up to, I think it was like 4th or 5th on the all-time 3-point list in that same game. And you didn't see Lillard going crazy needing the game ball. And, like, he's like on these record books, like, which is, I think, a bigger accolade than just like your franchise's scoring record because you're in the all-time records for every team. So I think like that to me, that's a bigger accolade in and of itself. But if Giannis scored like he beat Wilt Chamberlain's record,
Yeah.
okay, then yeah, you should probably be giving the game ball to Giannis. But I agree, the rookie should have gotten the game ball. But also, so there was another debate I saw going on. Technically, his first points were in the in-season tournament championship game, I think it was, because
Yeah,
it's the
but
one that
that game
doesn't
is
count.
counted as an exhibition game.
Right. So then people are saying, why didn't he get the game ball then? And I'm like, well, first off, like you just said, it counts as an exhibition game. It doesn't count towards the regular season. So technically, if that was his only point he ever scored on his stat page, it would still show 0.
Yeah.
And they lost the championship game. So why are you grabbing the game ball if you lost the championship game?
Yeah.
So, yeah, either way, I think that it probably should have went to the rookie. I mean, look, on Bovada, Giannis is 5th highest odds to win the MVP. He's at plus 850 right now. Like, do you really need this game ball for this one game? Like, yes, you had a great game, 60 points, whatever. As you said, I'm sure it'll have a chance to happen again. If it doesn't, you'll probably get close for it happening again, and you'll still be. He has like 2 or 3 of the top 5 scoring games for Milwaukee Bucks franchise history.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a little ridiculous. So, getting into Ja Morant before we get into some more Atlantic Division talk. Ja is back, and he's shooting game winners. He gets the game winner on his very first game back.
Keyword shooting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Ja is a top 10 player in the league. You know, yeah, he was suspended for what, 25 games? It's not.
Yeah.
He's not coming back from injury. He's not coming back from torn ACL. He's not coming back from a 1.5-year suspension or whatever Miles Bridges is suspended for. I expected him to hit the ground running, and it sucks because Nas has him on his fantasy team. So now we got to deal with the best team in the league getting another top 15 player out of nowhere. So, you know, it sucks for our fantasy league. But Ja is a great player, a talented player. He had an easy game against the Pelicans. So, I mean, it's not like it's not like he's playing a team like the Nets who play defense, or the Sixers,
or the Timberwolves,
or the Heat, or the Timberwolves. He played the Gumbo Boys and Zion Williamson, who can barely make it up the court. So it is what it is. Not to say it is what it is. That's not what I'm trying to say. He's a great player coming back after 25 games. Good to have him back in the league. Hopefully he stays away from guns and can continue on his Hall of Fame career if that's what he chooses to do.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he stays healthy, as long as he stays away from suspensions and doesn't take the Draymond Green route, he'll be fine. I mean, I will say I am surprised he put up as big of a game as he did in his first game back, just because I feel like when you're off for that long, especially from like game live action in the NBA, usually you show a little more rust, but he looked decent. I mean, he wasn't shooting from 3 well. He went 0 for 5, but also he wasn't, he was never really that good from 3 in the first place.
He was serviceable, but not a sharpshooter.
Like,
the only thing he can't shoot is threes.
Yeah. True. Like his highest 3-point percentage for one season was 34%, which isn't terrible, but it's not great. He's right around a 75% shooter from the free throw line in his career too. So, I mean, it's like around average. But I'm very curious to see how this team does now with him back in the lineup, because we saw how good they could be last year with him and Bane and Jaren Jackson and those guys all meshing together. But now their whole front court is essentially hurt. They had to bring in Biyombo. He's the starting center now. Xavier Tillman was starting and then was doing so bad that they benched him and then he got hurt. And I mean, Adams is out for a long time. Brandon Clark's out for a long time. Like, they just don't have, to me, the front court depth to really. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the playoffs at all, especially with how they started. But they definitely, I don't see them getting through the play-in. I think they'll finish probably 9th or 10th and then lose in the play-in at best.
Yeah, they definitely don't have the star power up front, or not up front. They don't have this, they have Bane, Jackson, and Ja, but they don't have enough to overcome that 6 and whatever it was, 6 and 20 start or something.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Maybe they scratch and claw. Maybe they get hot and make it to the 10 seed, which would be the playing game. But I think it sucks because Ja got suspended, and that's 90% of the reason why they are where they are. But I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I think they're probably going to fall short. But hey, you know what? With that team, it could be like a blessing in disguise almost, right? You don't make the playoffs, you get a top 10 pick. You hit in the draft with your lottery pick, and then boom, you got a good player on a cheap contract that's going to help your other stars. So it could be one of those, blessing in disguises that they don't make the playoffs this year, but they end up being, set up for their future.
True. I mean, if you can add a shooting guard or a small forward to this team so that, you don't have to start Ja, Smart, and Bane all together at the same time, because I don't think that, all of those three guys together at the same time, I don't think is going to be your best shot at a great backcourt in terms of both offense and defense. Sure, you have Marcus Smart for the defensive part, but Ja and Bane aren't exactly known for their defense. And then on the offensive side, Marcus Smart's serviceable. John Morant can get you, 20, 24, 25 a night. Bane will probably be up and down a little bit just because he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much as he was this whole time with Ja out. So, yeah. And also, Jaren Jackson is one of those guys that he's a little undersized to be the center full time, but also his offensive game isn't consistent enough to be a power forward in today's NBA, because he's not he can shoot the three a little bit. He can step in the mid range a little bit, but it's not consistent enough to call him a stretch four or one of those power forwards that are shooting a lot.
Yeah, it's not Rory Markin.
Right. And he's not one of the undersized power forwards, that the Bulls throw DeRozan in at power forward and things like that. He's not one of those guys, but his defense makes up for some of it. However, if you're throwing him up against some of the best centers in the league, in the playoffs, if you're throwing him up against Anthony Davis, Davis is probably going to win that matchup 9 times out of 10. So they have to get someone healthy, and they have to get a defensive big in there to just cover the top center on the other team too. So yeah, they to me aren't really moving the needle much with Ja back. According to Bovada, they are the 4th lowest odds to win the Western Conference. They're at plus 8,000. The only teams with worse odds than them are the Trailblazers, Spurs, and the Jazz. So yeah, they're just not that great of a team. But moving on to the Atlantic Division. So wanted to check in here with the Atlantic Division as things stand today. If I bring up the division standing. So we still have the Celtics in first in the division, also in the East. They're 20-6. Then you got the Sixers, 3rd seed in the East at 18-8. The Knicks with the 5th seed at 15-11. Then the Nets with the 9th seed at 13-13. And the Raptors right behind them in the 10 seed at 11-15. They're the only division in the East, actually the only division in the NBA that has all 5 teams either in the playoffs or in the play-in right now. I mean, this division is historically competitive except for, a couple stretches where they had a bunch of tanking teams. But the Celtics, I mean, the Celtics look really, really fucking good so far this year. They have one of the top defenses. They haven't even had their team fully healthy for that long. So combine that with the fact they have one of the top defenses and they can still get the team healthy again at some point. They'll be scary looking. Derek White, I think, is at this rate, I think Derek White has to be the most underrated player in the league. He just, I mean, he literally does everything that a winning player needs to do.
Yeah. They're loaded. And, obviously Porzingis has his health concerns, and I think that's their X factor. I think their big three, Drew, Jalen, and Jason, so the three J's can carry them to an Eastern Conference final. But if you have Porzingis at 7-3, hitting shots, getting rebounds, playing defense the way he can, I mean, that's the that's the bacon in the loaded mashed potatoes, if you might, or the sour cream, that's on top. They're gonna win the division going away. They're better than the Sixers. I hate to say it, and obviously they're better than the rest. I think we'll probably see the Raptors fall off at some point. I think they're gonna sell. They're probably gonna sell Siakam, and retool around Scotty Barnes. So we'll definitely see them fall off. But the Nets are a mid team right now. They got a bunch of good pieces, but they lack a true alpha dog to go along with Mikal Bridges. And the Knicks are a good bunch of players too as well. They have a little more upside because Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle gives them two, big time performers. We need to see it in the playoffs, but they can move up in the standings. They can get into that top 4 or 5 in the East if they're not already there. I don't have the standings in front of me, but
I think they're 5th currently.
Yeah, so that's what you're looking at in the East. I mean, I'll tell you, like I always tell you, the Sixers are not winning a championship. They're just not with that roster. I mean, they can make a move. I know they moved Harden and they got more pieces and picks. So maybe they're not a finished product, but I just don't believe, or what Joel Embiid, they're going to win an NBA championship. I just don't think he's an NBA championship winning player. He's a great player. He could win an MVP, but I don't think he could lead his team to a championship.
I mean, I will say that the energy around the team and specifically Embiid this year does feel different compared to the last 5-6 seasons.
Yeah.
He's actually passing the ball a lot more. He's doubled his assists per game total. He is actually passing very well out of double teams. He's not frantically just throwing the ball across the court when a double team comes anymore. He showed in the Bulls game just a couple days ago that he'll actually wait. The double team will come towards him. He'll take his time and find the right pass. And the Nick Nurse offense has just looked way more fluid than any of the offenses the Sixers have run in with either Rivers or Brett Brown or anybody. So all of it does look a hell of a lot better than it's been in many of the recent seasons. And yeah, the reports are that the Sixers are still looking for one more piece, specifically one that is a two-way player. OG Anunoby is a name that has come up a lot in this whole discussion. I used to love OG Anunoby and was a big fan of his until he just can't stay on the court. That's just what it comes down to. I feel like I'm Dennis right now, but he just can't stay healthy. And if you're trading all this stuff you just got for James Harden for a guy that can't stay on the floor and is becoming an unrestricted free agent, then you're not going to have much to show for him after that. And it's people talk about trading for Siakam as well. I don't think Siakam really fits with the team. If I really had my choice, I would say somebody in like the prototype of Drew Holiday would probably fit the most.
I think Levine would fit.
He would be okay, but I don't like how he fits on the defensive side of the ball because Maxey really isn't a great defender. So if we're going to have Maxey and Levine on the court at the same time, you're going to have probably like Covington and probably, I don't know, somebody else that can play defense on as well as with Embiid. But like if there was a Drew Holiday type of player, I think that would fit a lot better in the terms of because Maxey, I still think is better fit as like a run and gun type of shooting guard instead of an actual distributing point guard. So if you get a distributor that can play defense, then I think that's probably the best fit you're going to get alongside Maxey and one that can also make good entry passes to the post for Joel Embiid.
Trying to think who would fit.
That's the thing. I say Drew Holiday, and I know he would, but I'm trying to think of guys like him, and it comes down to like I can't think of many. So, and it's not going to be random superstars because a lot of those guys aren't going to be on the market. So, I mean, if I'm trying to think of some like
I was going to say like Brandon Ingram, but probably not.
I mean, he at least would help in the scoring department. Like CJ McCollum isn't exactly a huge defender. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be tough to come up with somebody. But I mean, as of right now, like the Celtics are, I agree, they're far and away the number one team in this division. I think they're going to end up winning it. I kind of like where the Knicks are headed. I mean, it just sucks that Mitchell Robinson keeps getting hurt. He's out for another like 2 months, so they're going with the Hartenstein project. So it's a little rough on their end of things. According to Bovada right now, the Celtics are by far and away the favorites, just like we were saying. They're at minus 750. Then the Sixers are second at plus 400. You got the Knicks at plus 6,000, the Nets at plus 20,000, and the Raptors at plus 30,000. So it's, yeah, it pretty much goes along with exactly what we've been saying. I would say, though, who do you think would be the best fit, and who do you think you could realistically get for the Nets to go alongside Mikal Bridges, though?
It's tough because I normally would have been like Cat, but
Right.
if they're going to be 17-4 or whatever the hell their record is, that ain't happening. It's got to be. Well, it's got to either be an upgrade to Claxton or a guy that can be the lead guard instead of Dinwiddie/Thomas.
What if
Halliburton would be great, but that's not happening.
What if the Hawks made like DeJounte Murray available?
No, it needs to be a guy that could be the number one. Mikal Bridges is a really good number two. I don't think he's the number one.
I don't think Detroit would be trading Cade Cunningham.
Cade hasn't shown it. Lamelo. There's like so many guys that are just like not available.
I know. A lot of them are on bad teams, so they're just the bad teams are going to keep them for a long time.
I don't know.
Unless Houston decides like they want to just compete right now and decide to trade Amen Thompson.
No, it's not happening.
I mean,
trying to think who on there's nobody on Orlando because they have a huge amount of guards.
True. I mean, you did say earlier about Golden State if they want to blow it up, maybe trade Steph Curry.
Yeah, but I don't think the Nets are one player away. I think they're another star and a couple upgraded starters away. Like
That makes sense.
they got a team, they got a bunch of like 80s in 2K with
Right.
like Mikal Bridges being like an 88. They
Right.
need like a 94, and then they need those 80s to be like 83s.
I got you.
If that makes
That
sense.
makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I see what you're saying.
Like
I
they need
mean,
to be like high end mid level players, and then
right.
they need a superstar. They can't
Right.
get one and not the other. They need both. And Isaiah Hartenstein is now bleeding from his face. So that's great.
Well, that's not going to go well for the Knicks. I see right now that the Sixers are actually up 2 on Minnesota somehow, even though Jaden McDaniels has 19 points, just as everyone expected.
But yeah, I'll come back to you when I can think of somebody. But Miles Turner, like upgrading Claxton to Turner would be great.
Okay. Okay.
Moving Dinwiddie and getting like, is there a guy available in OKC? Who's the odd man out in OKC?
Right now, probably Josh Giddey.
Like, can we get Josh Giddey and just hope that this girl never cooperates? Like, you know,
I mean,
like that would
maybe.
be two moves you can. Obviously, I say you can make. It'd be hard to get those two guys, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Like those are like if you upgraded Claxton to Turner and you upgraded Dinwiddie to Giddey, then you got some pieces. But
True. I mean,
or
you
Jalen
could
Williams. We get Jalen Williams.
like if you were trading Claxton, you could maybe try to get like Turner and Buddy Hield, because then Buddy Hield would be like your 6th man, or even just the 2 guard, and make
Yeah.
McCall the
I don't think
3.
that's a trade they would make though.
Probably not, but like, yeah, you'd have to dangle other people in there. Like you'd have to say like Claxton and like Cam Thomas and somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, like along the lines there. So I feel that. But
Like Donovan
yeah.
Mitchell, but I think you'd need more than Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, so I will say Donovan Mitchell's one that like I've seen a lot of things of people for other teams like the Knicks, the Sixers, all sorts of teams saying like if you just get Mitchell, they're automatically a contender. But like Mitchell too, I think he fits better with Mikal Bridges than he does what the Knicks and the Sixers have, because Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson, or Donovan Mitchell and Tyrese Maxey, are extreme defensive liabilities.
So let me ask you this: this will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the Nets trade Donovan Mitchell and they trade Claxton and Cam Thomas and whatever picks and pieces, and they get Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
Does that trio make them a top 5 team in the East? Mitchell, Bridges, Allen, with all their 3-and-D guys that they have.
I think that makes them.
It probably doesn't. It makes them competitive, makes them probably a 6 seed. But they're not going to win it. So then you need to turn Allen into, Allen's got it. They need another superstar.
Well, okay, so say you make that trade. Cleveland gets tremendously weaker. They're in the 6th seed right now.
Yeah.
And because Garland and Mobley are both out for like a month to 2 months. So they automatically drop. The Miami Heat are in the 7th seed. They're probably going to hover around there because they're hurt all the time. The Pacers are only 1 seed above the Nets right now. Their defense is terrible. And they'll probably, like the Nets could already be over them, but just by winning a game or 2. So then above that, you got the Knicks and the Magic. I think that trio could definitely, with the 3-and-D guys that the Nets have right now, could definitely compete with the Knicks and the Magic for like the 6-5-4 that,
Yeah.
like, I think they could interchange those 3 slots anywhere.
Yeah.
Do I think they're competing with like Sixers, Bucks, Celtics for like a championship? I don't think so, but I think it definitely drastically improves their playoff seeding and their competitiveness.
Yeah, but I think what the Nets end up doing is these Suns picks are going to be lottery picks because the Suns are going to burn. No pun intended. So they're going to sit tight. If they could, they'll do what they can with Bridges. If Bridges ends up getting traded down the line because of the timeline, it is what it is. But no, they'll be fine. The Nets are going to be fine.
Yeah, no, I think they'll be fine too. Especially you give them a couple decent picks. They usually turn 1 or 2 picks a draft into something decent. So I think they'll get some solid return from the draft and everything in there. And we'll leave with this the Atlantic Division check-in with this. On Bovado right now, the Boston Celtics are the number 1 team to win the championship at plus 375. For the Atlantic, you have the Sixers next at plus 1,400. And then after them, you got the Knicks at plus 6,000. So all you Knicks fans, if you just want to try and get lucky at some point, maybe throw a couple bucks on there, see what happens. And then it gets down to Brooklyn at plus 30,000, and Toronto is actually tied with them at plus 30,000. I don't know how they have the same odds, because if you're asking me, Toronto should be much lower than that. But yeah, they're all the way down there. But other than that, we got a short episode for everybody because that is really all that's been going on lately. And so unless you have anything else to get off your chest, I think that's it here for us.
No, that's all I got.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening and watching another episode of the Atlantic Files, the number 1 podcast on the number 1 division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. We will catch you guys next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll post everything and let you guys know when we're getting back on for that. So thank you, everybody, and we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.